Our first official committee meeting, the Ways and Means Committee. I'll first ask our new Vice Chair, Representative Jamie Keel, to open us in prayer.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity that we have today to come together to work on the issues that affect your people. And Lord, we thank you for this this opportunity that we have to decide the future of education in Alabama, Lord, to help direct the funds that will change lives in Alabama. Lord, thank you for this. Thank you for all the members and all those here today. In Christ's name, amen.
Thank you. Clerk will call the roll. Here.
Representative Almond. Here. Representative Chestnut.
Here.
Representative Baker. Here. Representative Collins. Representative Collins.
Here.
Representative Daniels. Here. Representative Ellis. Here. Representative Faulkner. Representative Lawrence. Representative Lovern. Here. Representative Stubbs.
Here.
Representative Wood.
Here.
Thank you very much. And again, welcome everybody. Welcome to our audience. This is our first official meeting. We want to begin by making sure everybody's cell phones are silenced. Please turn those off, make sure they are. Also, I want to just acknowledge some of our committee structure. I will say this too, we have a time frame. There's a meeting after us, so we're going to be moving through pretty quickly with our presentations. But first, welcome Representative Keel as new Vice Chair. Representative Barbara Drummond's our new ranking member. Welcome. They've already had a lot of input into our planning and our discussions going forward. Look forward to their leadership. I want to recognize our new members. Leader Daniels, happy to have you on our committee. Look forward to your contributions. Representative Kelvin Lawrence is not present at the moment, but he's coming over from the General Fund. Welcome him. Representative Almond, welcome you from Tuscaloosa area. Happy to have you on board. Our Representative Brock Colvin from the Marshall County, welcome. And Representative Troy Stubbs, Elmore County, welcome. And Chairman Lovern has moved down to the Rules Committee, so he's I also want to welcome, thank you, Karen Cheeks, for your being back and keeping us all in order and running. And also we have an intern we want to recognize, Abby Wade. Abby's from the McCalla area and is a student at UAB, majoring in criminal justice, so watch out. This morning we have a couple of presentations. Before I do though, I want to go through just some general guidelines for the benefit of our committee members about how we conduct the committee. First of all, we will start on time. I might have been a minute or so late this morning, but we generally start on time. Please pay close attention to the meeting notices there. Karen will notify you, but also their meetings are available on the legislative website. Just please make sure, take responsibility to make sure you're up to speed on that. We want to follow the rules of procedures and conduct ourselves in an orderly fashion in this meeting. So this is not really a meeting or a committee that we're looking for a lot of political grandstanding. It's a working committee. We want to see some good policy decisions made. It's always operated that way. So we want to continue to make sure we have decorum and respect one another in our comments. When there's an opportunity for you have a question, I would ask that all the questions go through the chair. By that I'm meaning just look to me, raise your hand, look to me, get my attention, and then I will recognize you, and we'll do that. And I will promise I'll recognize everyone, and we will make sure everybody has the information you request before we move forward. We want to make sure we're very deliberate and there's no rush. We want to make sure we're making good decisions. So it's very important to me that everybody feels heard and your questions are answered. We'll take as much time on an issue as committee members wish. If we bump into time constraints in a particular meeting, then we will, of course, carry something over, but just be aware of that. If you have any materials or meetings that need to be scheduled, let me know, let Karen know if you have anything special to know. There will be some subcommittees that in this committee that you'll be notified of your position on those. Each member will be on a subcommittee. If you have any concerns about a bill being placed on the agenda, you want a bill on the agenda, you're concerned about a bill that you don't want to be on the agenda, come talk to me about that because we'll set the agenda. And to that point, I always have an open door policy, so I want to encourage you to ask questions, hold me accountable to the same things I'm asking to hold you accountable to. The one thing that when you sit in this chair seat that's a little bit daunting to me is that people tend to just assume that I know what I'm doing, and they kind of just they just kind of trust what I say. Please scrutinize, please ask questions, please challenge me. I welcome that. We need that. Also, sometimes there will be substitute bills. And substitutes, in other words, we have a bill that's introduced, and for the benefit of the new members, if someone says, you know what, I'm not going to just amend that bill, I'm just going to create a substitute bill. If we're going to have a substitute, if a bill is scheduled on a calendar, like, or on our schedule for next week, for example, and you decide I'm going to substitute that bill, that sub, I want the committee to have that sub by Friday afternoon. So on Friday afternoon, you have to have that sub so that before we meet next Wednesday, the committee members have had a chance to do that. We will not discuss the sub that the committee's not had a chance to look at. So make clear. So in other words, if you have a substitute bill, make sure Karen has it by the close of business Friday afternoon so the committee members can receive it over the weekend. The second thing is that if you have committee amendments, sometimes things come up on the fly, but to the extent you can, please notify Karen a day in advance of the meeting so we can be prepared to discuss that appropriately. We will conduct the businesses, all motions, including amendments, will require a roll call and must receive a second. So, including a call for roll call. So all motions, we don't necessarily roll call every vote, but if there is a call for roll call, someone wants to request roll call, that requires a second as well. And again, this is not a forum for policy, it's a forum for policy debate, not for political speeches or grandstanding. Please remember that. The other thing I want to make members aware of is a rule change that this is new to this year, and that is in the past, if someone introduced a bill and then we had amendments that the committee added, those amendments would be added. Then when the bill moved to the floor and was placed on the calendar, the bill would be brought up in its original form, and we would get through the BIR process if that was necessary. Then we would get to the point where then the committee amendment was then introduced on the floor and also was subject to debate and had to be adopted. And what happened was a lot of times you might, if say we had 3 committee amendments, you had the original bill, you had 3 committee amendments, which have to be dealt with separately on the House floor, and you don't have one document that contains all those amendments. So the new rule change basically says if we have committee amendments in this committee, those will be engrossed into a new substitute. And that bill is what will be presented on the floor. So those committee amendments will be dealt with in that engrossed sub. If someone on the floor doesn't like an amendment the House added, they can bring an amendment on the floor to remove that. Mr. Chair, did I explain that correctly? So it's a new thing that basically when a bill, if we add committee amendments, when it goes to the House floor, they will see a substitute engrossed bill that reflects that amendment. It will be redlined. Is that correct? So you'll be able to see what changes we made. Any questions about that? Okay. Well, thank you. And again, I look forward to serving with each of you. It's an honor, and just look forward to having a really good year. Any comments, ranking member?
I think you covered it very thoroughly, Mr. Chair. We look forward to serving along with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair? Okay, with that, today we have a couple of presentations, and I do see that Representative Faulkner and Representative Lawrence has joined us, so thank you very much. The first group we have is the Alabama Leaders in Educational Technology, ALET. Susan Poling is their executive director. So, Ms. Poling, the floor is yours.
Is this on? Yeah, I guess so. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be waiting for him or pressing a button.
There we go.
that's their presentation. That's okay. Hey, if anybody's used to technical difficulties, we are. Okay,
That's-
well, I want to start by thanking you, Chairman Garrett, and committee members for inviting us to give you a report on K-12 cybersecurity. This committee has been phenomenal on this issue. And for the new members, I think that you will gain a quick understanding of the important work that they've accomplished over the past couple of years. I am the executive director of Alabama Leaders in Educational Technology. The group's been around for 20 years. Our membership is comprised of the technology coordinators and the technology staff of our public school systems. So we mainly are a professional development group. We help these folks collaborate, solve problems, and grow professionally. If you're wondering whether or not things have changed for the better with regard to cybersecurity in K-12, they definitely have not. In fact, K-12 is being targeted now more than ever before. On this slide, you can see that there's a live Microsoft graph that's posted, and 80% of all the system-wide enterprise malware that's reported to them comes from education entities. The reason for this is because we have what cyber criminals want. We've got valuable data, personal data, in the state of Alabama, and a lot of data on their parents and all the employees. And that doesn't mean just the people who are employed and in school right now. These systems have decades worth of data left on servers, information, teachers can't get to lesson plans, phone systems don't work. So cyber criminals like that aspect of it, because if they bring you to a halt, you're going to be really thinking about paying that ransom in order to get back up and running. Technology departments in school systems nationwide are typically understaffed and underfunded. And if you are in a technology department, you're always going to be playing defense. And if you know something about putting together a good defense, you know it takes strategies and resources. It's not just something that happens because people feel responsible for it. You have to have the right people. In this case, you have to have some advanced technology going because things change very fast in technology. If you look at what the real cost of cybersecurity is, the recommendation in the business world, at least one of them, is that you spend about $1,300 per employee per year. If you took the number of employees in Alabama public school systems, that would come to about $120 million a year. Now, I'm not going to ask you for $120 million. So the good news is that you, this committee in particular, and the state in general, has made an investment in cybersecurity to help these systems out bear this cost. You were the very first state in the United States to fund cybersecurity for K-12, and you are still leading the pack. Many more states now have had so many incidents in their state that they realize now they have to help funding it, and they're going about it in different ways. But you led that, and you're still leading that. This began for particularly the new committee members back in 2021. During that legislative session, COVID hit. The session was very disrupted, and yet you managed to put $1 million into the budget in order to secure software that would help train 90,000 school system employees in cybersecurity. And the reason that was such a vital start is because nearly all malware and ransomware comes in through that email inbox. So that training is one of the best strategies and the most important strategies needed to secure our systems. The next year, when things calmed down from COVID a little bit, you put $3.6 million into K-12 cybersecurity. The contract for the employee training was still ongoing because it was a 2-year contract. And now you added per system funding at $25,000 per system. This money was spent individually by systems through a grant process that helped us and helped them identify what they needed the most. If you took Baldwin County and you took Perry County, One of them's going to have a whole lot more resources already. One of them's going to have maybe a different structure to their network. So by individualizing these grant applications, we could help make sure that the expenditures were put in the place that would do the most good. Of that $3.6 million, $50,000 came to our organization, and that was for us to help collaborate with the State Department, which has been a great partnership, put together the application with all the detail in it that created a cybersecurity profile for the system, keeping that confidential and encrypted, and also to conduct cybersecurity training for school system employees. 142 out of 150 systems applied that first year. We tried our best, called, emailed, and still there were 8 systems that didn't apply. One of those systems got hit by ransomware, and they were one of the first to apply this year. So in the current budget year, you put $10.5 million into cybersecurity for K-12. We had sort of a 3-year plan going with some of the committee members like Barbara Drummond, David Faulkner, Alan Baker, where we were going to try and scale up to $68,000 per system over a 3-year period. But because the revenues for the state were good, because you believed in the project, you went ahead and you authorized that $68,000 per system. And that was a game changer. And I'll show you how that was a game changer soon. We got 100% participation, and again, collaborated with the State Department. And you also added another $500,000 in order to continue the employee training software licensing. So this is how the money was spent between year 1 and year 2. You can see that there's a huge jump in the percent of funding that was spent on staff. That's because the $68,000 enabled districts that with only $25,000, they couldn't afford to match more salary money and benefits to hire somebody. But now that it was $68,000, many of them were able to do that. And that was the #1 need. Because all of those other things you see at the bottom, backups, firewalls, content filtering and stuff, all that stuff has to be managed. And there is a lot to do in a school system. Our 155 school systems manage over 1 million devices, serve over 800,000 users. And, you know, if you don't have somebody who is paying attention to cybersecurity because of all the other needs that they're trying to serve in the district, you're liable to end up with some serious problems. But you can see on this chart that the intended use of jumping that up to 68,000 was realized, because we went from less than 50% of school systems back in 2019 having at least one network administrator to now 70%. And some of the 155 that are included in that last bar there, some of those are small charter schools, and a lot of the very small charter schools contract out all of their network service and everything, because they just need internet access is about all they need for some of them. So it's really a little bit above 70% of systems that now will have a network administrator. Some of these jobs are posted. Obviously, they have to be able to secure the candidates to fill the positions. So that is, you know, I think just fantastic. When I started coming to you a couple years ago and asking for this funding on behalf of our school systems, I was worried about what would happen if there were no more headlines saying ransomware attack, such and such school system closes down, or data stolen. You know, would you think that, hey, we don't need to give them the money anymore because it doesn't appear to be happening anymore? So we added a question to the application this year and asked the school systems. It was a voluntary question. 138 out of 154 answered it. What types of incidents did you run into over the past 12 months? And you can see there that everybody's getting phished. And as they're getting phished, then the things that are in the emails, whether they're just complete spoofed emails or have infected attachments or links or whatever, lead to a lot of those other things that you see up there, like routing number scams, et cetera. But 8% said that they had a ransomware attempt, right? in the pie chart, you can see there that 85% of systems were able to completely stop the harm from these events. 15% partially stopped the harm, and 2% was not able to. And I don't have the time to share with you, but I have a good number of quotes from folks who have told me it was because of the better antivirus we bought with our cyber money that this was identified and quarantined. It was because of our contracted services, our employee training, and our new network staff that they were able to prevent this.
Ms. Foley, would you, for the benefit of Representative Colvin, explain what phishing is, please?
Oh, sure. Yeah, phishing, as opposed to going after grouper or anything. Phishing is actually kind of the same. It's an analogy because you will get sent emails that are fake or contain malicious code in them. And because you can go out and you can get email addresses for hundreds of thousands of people, you can just send these emails into a system and says, well, your Amazon card needs to be renewed, or I'm your principal and I want you to read this document. And when you click on that, it releases malware onto the system.
That's actually not intended for you. That was, you probably knew, but some of our other members may not have understood that. So.
Okay.
Thank you for that dose of humility, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. So again, I told you that $50,000, part of it is spent on the cyber camps that ALET puts on. This is a picture from a cyber camp that we did February 1st and 2nd right here on the campus of Troy University in Montgomery. This is free to participants. We have another one coming up in Huntsville for folks in the upper part of the state. The people who attend are both technology coordinators and network administrators. And in some cases, if they didn't have a network administrator, they might send a technician, all right, if that's the person that they're, the only person they have on their staff. 70% of systems attend. Each cyber camp can serve 100 people. Every single one of them sells out almost immediately, and I mean that figuratively because there's no cost to it. We have expert speakers. We have some of our own practitioners who are CISSP certified or have other excellent backgrounds in cybersecurity. Alabama Supercomputer has been presenting at our most recent cyber camps. Dr. Greg Price from Troy University, who works with the FBI investigating cybersecurity incidents. And we also have a great partnership with the Department of Homeland Security, CISA agency. That's a cybersecurity, infrastructure security agency. And the reason that that is important is because the Department of Homeland Security, and particularly that sub-agency, has a lot of resources for K-12. They offer free on-site security audits, penetration testing, and other types of vulnerability testing and other services. And we have a representative from CISA here with us today. But what we have tried to do from day one is be sure that school systems know about quality free services so that when they go to spend their state cyber money, they're spending it on something that they can't get for free. We don't want them to pay for something if they can get it for free. There is a waiting list for having people come do some of these services, but they have just been absolutely great. Their presentations are very well attended by the cyber campers. The feedback we get from cyber camps is tremendous. 99% of people say they leave with things that they're going to go back and apply in their systems. And one of the other great things about the camps is because if you're a network administrator in a school system, you're probably kind of like a unicorn. It's not like a teacher or counselor or school nurse or a principal where you have a Java-like colleague somewhere else in the system, sometimes right next door. It's just you. So for them to be able to use strategies and everything is a great opportunity for them. Which brings me to the technology coordinators themselves. I said they also attend because they're ultimately responsible for the cybersecurity in the system. And they're a little unique too, because unlike maybe the CSFO, who nearly every CSFO in the state is going to have an accounting or a business background, technology coordinators are sort of split down the middle. About half of them come from technical backgrounds and half of them come from education backgrounds. So they come in with different skill sets, and a third of them have less than 3 years in the job. Okay, so it's going to take them about 3 years to really get good and start understanding the full scope of the job. If you look at the far end of that, the people who have 20 plus years in, you probably think, well, there aren't going to be very many people retiring because there's very few numbers there. But the turnover in the technology coordinator is occurring sort of in the middle of that graph. Once they get in there and seasoned, and no matter what side they come from, but particularly the technical side, they become very attractive to business and particularly to the tech industry, who hire them away to go into sales, who hire them away to come into technical support. And so that's where you're going to see the changeover occur. It's not going to be at the far end of the scale with the retirees. Sometimes the State Department takes people too. So anyway, so our Chief Technology Officer Academy is something that AILET started in 2017. We realized that we really needed a role-specific professional development program for technology coordinators. So this program has had 3 sets of graduates from it, but this last year we decided we really wanted to re-examine the program and improve it. We decided to partner with the University of Montevallo for a couple reasons. One is that they have one of the best, if not the best, graduate programs in instructional technology. Dr. Jennifer Alexiou Ray is here with us today. She and Cassie Ralston helped work with our VP to relook at the program, increase the rigor, increase the requirements, align it, not that it wasn't already because we aligned to some national standards, but they have really invigorated the program. They have been members of AILET for years. They went through the CTO program, even though they were never going to become a chief technology officer or a technology coordinator. So this program is sort of like the CSFO, PD, and sort of like the Superintendent's Academy because we take current and aspiring folks. We want to help with that pipeline. It's a 54-hour program in person over a year. The first 42 hours are in the core areas of responsibility. They're in person, believe it or not. It brings those job-like people together again, led by practitioners and experts. The 12 additional hours are really important. We have added 3 additional required hours in cybersecurity for everyone, and then they will get 6 hours in whatever their growth area is. I don't want to say weak side, but if they come from a technical background, they're going to get 6 extra hours in teaching and learning, planning professional development. If they come from the education side, they're going to get 6 extra hours in IT management. And following graduation, they need to continue that 12 hours a year in order to remain certified. And I just wanted to share that with you because I think that it is an important component, not just on cybersecurity, but the overall management, decision-making, the inspiration, and putting quality programs together for our school systems. So between the 2 things, the cyber camps and the Chief Technology Officer Academy, we feel like we are doing a good job with helping to improve the cybersecurity of our school systems. And the last slide is about funding, because you're the funding committee. I was here, it wasn't a year ago, and I promised Chairman Garrett I would not come back asking for more money, and I am not coming back asking for more money. So what we are asking for this year is that you please maintain the $68,000 per system, and would love if you can take into account any additional charters or traditional schools that get added, because when that doesn't happen, it gets reduced a little bit per system. Continue the funding to our organization so that we can continue to collaborate and play the role that we have in the grant application process and the cyber camps, and continue funding the employee cybersecurity training. And that's our request for the year. Here's a happy bunch of former and current AILET board members who would like to thank you if they were here in person. And we just want to say a huge thank you not just for the money, but for the time you took to study the issue. So,
Thank you. Can you introduce your guests that are with you today?
sure. Okay. Stephanie Watt is with DHS, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Agency. Tony Patterson is the technology director from Montgomery County Schools. She was recently at our cyber camp and is in our CTO program. And she's been working real closely getting those free services from CISA. And Dr. Jennifer Alexu Ray is the director of graduate studies at University of Montevallo, who I talked about as being so instrumental in our program. And then Brian Phillips is our past president and was our president several times, and he is the CIO for Hoover City Schools.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions before I see if other members have comments. One, can you explain briefly what the difference between a network administrator and technology coordinator is?
The technology coordinator, and that's the job title that is written into the ETF, kind of preferred directors, but they are over the entire department. And so they have the whole responsibility for the teaching and learning side, professional development for teachers, and all of the management decisions for purchasing software, hardware, implementing one-to-one programs, et cetera. The network administrator is going to be technically focused on running that network, protecting the network, expanding it, and making sure all the devices and software on the network are operating safe and available to the users in the district.
And the 68,000 is for which of those?
The 68,000 is for the network administrator. I meant to say it, but I forgot. We did not allow anybody who said, well, I'd like to take on some more cybersecurity responsibilities, so I would like to spend part of my cyber funds on my salary. And that was not allowed.
Good, yeah.
They already have the responsibility. So,
Well, it's so gratifying to see the results, immediate results from some of these things. Rarely do you get to see a return that quickly. So that's exciting. We still, though, have 30% of our systems without network administrators, if I read your graph correctly, right?
yeah, that's correct. In some cases, you may have a system where the technology coordinator came from that technical background and they manage the network. That's a lot on their shoulders. But, that's the case with some. With others, they have to contract out those services. And there are some risks in doing that.
Right.
Because the network's got to run whether you have a network administrator or not.
Right.
But,
So
yeah.
Representative Baker, you've been sort of the champion here. Do you have any comments or anything you wanted to ask first before I see if other members have
Thank you
questions?
so much, Chairman. First, Ms. Poland, thank you so much just for your presentation and just for the incredible work. A few years back, I didn't know who Alert was. And now then it's where I've become much more informed, through you and your entity. And it's helped, I think, this entire committee to be able to better understand priorities that are very important to the school systems across the state. And the vital service, to me, it's where Alert provides somewhat the crucial underbelly support for the school systems across the state. And this is an area that oftentimes a lot of the schools, they're going about their normal day-to-day, week-to-week business. And this is something that until they get hit, then it's something that's sort of not on their radar. But then all of a sudden they take a hit and now things shut down. And now it becomes, paramount, with what their concerns going forward. You've already alluded to one of the school systems then earlier. But thank you so much for what you provide to our committee and helping us to stay informed. This goes back to, and Mr. Chairman, I'd say that the cybersecurity training for each of these the employees across the state is of vital importance. So I'm glad to see that this is something that continues and something I would hope that our committee would continue to fund as we recognize that although there may be some firewalls at upper levels and such, but it's really down into the individual end user where these portals sometimes become openings for those that attack the system. So thank you once again for the presentation.
Any other comments, questions from committee members? Representative Drummond?
Good morning, Ms. Poland. I too thank you because I remember when you first came to us, it was, it was a very dismal picture. So
Yeah, it
to see it
was.
turn around so quickly, I do applaud that. One quick question. You mentioned about the public schools and the charter schools. I'm trying to understand, do they communicate at all through technology? Because, I mean, you know, there's a link there and both are public. So,
Well, they're certainly included in the grant application. All of the charter schools who were recognized by the state this past year were funded with the program. What I was trying to say is that what I have seen of their applications, there was one, and I can't remember which one, that had a network administrator. The rest of them, including a couple, the new aerospace school there in Bessemer, you know, they start up, they get some technology in, they realize they got to get on the internet and stuff, but they sort of have one company in common that most of them use to manage their technology. Am I answering your question? I'm not sure I am.
I think, are you asking about the funding? Like you mentioned that if we had in the budget, if we have charters added to make sure they're funded, because I believe right now we have a pot of money that is $68,000 per system. And so if we allocate that money and then say we add 2 charters, that has to come out of that pot. But what she's asking is, as you add a charter, can you also address them separately? And that's what we did last year. I think that's her question, right?
Yeah, well, last year, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2, you had Orange Beach added on, and there were a couple more charters. And when we originally came up with the calculation for the 10.454, that was missing a couple. So everybody actually got like that 67,558 because it had to be divided between all the schools. So if you're aware of how many charter schools or any additional, schools they're going to be for the FY24 school year, we're requesting that you increase the overall amount by 68,000 for that new school.
Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you very much, and we look forward to continue supporting, hearing good things, and keep us informed.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Our next presenter is Dr. John Hoyle, who's the president of the Alabama School of Math and Science. And you have some guests as well that you'll recognize.
Chairman Garrett, thank you very much for this invitation. Committee members, I'd like to introduce some of my staff right now. To my left is Ken Robinson. He heads up our admissions department. And then Allison McMakin, she works in our development department as a director. And then our vice president of development is Dr. Samantha Church. And we also have a board member here, and that's Aliska Morgan. Well, we're very grateful to be here today. I'm grateful to talk to you today about a school that is transformative for young people in many, many ways that I wish I could get into the weeds for about 3 hours with you today, but I know your time is short. I like to refer to a truism that my dad passed down to me when he always reminded me of what the book of Matthew says in regard to knowing them by the fruits of their labor. The Alabama School of Math and Science was founded in 1989 because of you. The legislature started the school because it knew that there was a niche that needed to be filled in this state. And so this year we're celebrating our 30th anniversary. And I am grateful to look you in the eyes today and let you know that it is great to judge the Alabama School of Math and Science by the fruits of our labor. I'll throw out some stats for you. 100% of our graduates go to college. Of those, and this may be the most critical number that you hear today, of those, 75% stay in the state of Alabama to attend an in-state institution. Alabama, Auburn, wherever. They want our students. They seek them. They love them. They know that they get there and they don't need to worry about them matriculating through college. Our students are amazing. If you ever have any doubt that the future is bright and that young people are this and that, whatever you may hear, come spend some time down in Mobile. Spend a couple hours on the campus. Go to a class. Talk with the students at the school. You will be amazed and you will feel very good about what's happening down there. Our students go on to do incredible things. We're celebrating our 30th anniversary this year, and we're hosting the governor in a month from now. You all will be in session, but it would be great if at any point you could come down and see what we do, and we would welcome that with open arms. I like to refer to ASMS as a turbocharged STEM pipeline, and that's what we are. Of all the graduates that we send out across the state of Alabama, 66% of those seek STEM degrees, and about the same number stay in STEM. And those are future leaders. Those are doctors. Those are engineers. Those are nurses. Those are people who are meeting the workforce demands in Alabama. So I want you to feel good about what ASMS has to offer in this great state. We've been doing a good job. We're a force for good. And I can only imagine what we would do if we were able to solve some of the problems that we have, some infrastructure problems. But before I get to that, we are a STEM legacy school. We've been doing STEM before STEM was even a concept, even a buzzword. We are one of the only Cognia STEM certified schools in the state of Alabama. And I know I should not say this, but when Cognia reviewed the school, they said that we scored the highest of any school in the state at that time. We passed with flying colors. And it's because we have amazing students. We represent you. We represent the state of Alabama. We've graduated students from all 67 counties. That's our bread and butter. We love the diversity of the state. We embrace it. And we seek not the best and brightest in the state, but people who are a good fit for us. It's a misnomer when people say that you only take nerds or smart people or this or that. We take students who are a good fit. We love taking students from rural areas that may not have access to the kinds of classes that we offer. We run like a mini college. We are not on a semester system, we're on a trimester system. You may well know that in Alabama, you need 24 Carnegie units to graduate. Our graduates routinely earn 34, 33, 32, 35 Carnegie units. And that's not what is so important, because outside of that, our residential life programs are good because they allow students to learn skills, life skills, employment skills that can translate to success and health in college and beyond. Imagine if you come down to Mobile. You've done pretty well your whole life in school. You haven't been challenged. You're going to be challenged at ASMS. But you're also going to be challenged outside of the classroom. You're going to have to do your own laundry. You're going to have to work out roommate issues. One roommate might like the thermostat on 70, another might like it on 80. One might like country, another might like rock and roll. Imagine the skill set that you are honing when you have to work out those issues and take really hard classes from experts. You are going to leave completely, totally, utterly prepared for college and beyond. Our graduates, and we had a wonderful event in Huntsville recently, our graduates routinely tell us that without ASMS, they may have never achieved the success in their lives that they've achieved. And so you'll see some slides, and I'm not clicking through like I should. I'll ask Ms. McMakin to do some of that. I'm sorry. So in this new era, and I'm sure that you all will talk about school choice, and you know more than I do about all those things. But what I would say to that is, here you have a legacy STEM school, and I would open up the data and let anybody look at what we've accomplished. Our graduates leave with a 30 on the ACT. I'll pause there because that's a dramatic number. A 30 is about the highest in the country. And that happens year after year after year. The Alabama average hovers around 19 or 20. And you may say, well, Dr. Hoyle, John, you just picked the cream of the crop. That's not true. We take students who are a good fit for us, and we try to represent the state of Alabama. We have students who repeatedly come to us scared to say, ACT investigated me because they think that I cheated on the test because my score jumped up 9 points. And we tell them every time, calm down. We go through this every year. You're going to be fine. We know you didn't cheat on the test. It's because what they're learning in school is so accelerated. And it's that residential environment. We're the only high school in Alabama that's fully residential and public. And there's something to be said about taking all of these students, having them live on campus, and it becomes a living and learning environment where they push each other. And sometimes they push each other's buttons a little too much. They are still teenagers, and we understand that. And they have fun, by the way. You know, we're not all academics and books. They have fun. But having them live on campus is so meaningful and impactful for their growth and development. And again, I would invite you to come down and take a look at what they do. I have a few stories that you may have. We hired a paleontologist. His name is Dr. Andrew Gentry. He's kind of like Indiana Jones in that he seems unassuming when you hear him in class, and he is the foremost expert on ancient tortoises in Alabama. Well, he invited me to go down to Dauphin Island, which is below Mobile County, and spend time on a beach because 6 million year old sand was excavated from off of the island and pumped onto the island. I didn't know what I was looking for, but he is so passionate about what he does that he was able to teach teeth. I am a dunce when it comes to things like that. But in 3 hours on the beach, myself and 16 other kids collected over 1,000 fossils that have been sent all over. This guy was jumping up and down on the beach, and I was like, okay, this is exciting, I guess. And he was excited because he was on the phone with a professor in the Netherlands, and he identified that we found a gar tooth that could be the first fossil evidence of a freshwater gar tooth in all of Alabama from a certain period. That's the kind of expertise that our teachers have, and that's what I want to underscore with that story. Our teachers are not certified teachers in the same way public schools certify teachers. We look for college teachers that have expertise in their field, and they're good at teaching, but that expertise allows us to do amazing things like what we did at Dauphin Island. And that's a routine thing. You may have seen in the Advisor in the January issue, the Alabama School of Math and Science is mentioned as a success story. I had so many people, including Ann Bedsole, who was a state senator here for a long time and a champion of the school. She said, "John, I have no idea what that story means, but it sounded really good." Well, in a nutshell, we had a student, Tiago, who has a full ride already to a college, a physics professor, and a parent who went to a graduate level research conference in Mississippi and presented their research. What the story doesn't cover is that an alum contacted us afterward and said, "You left us out of the article. I was also there." So those are 4 people, a student, a teacher, a parent, and an alum, all at a graduate level research conference presenting on physics outside of Alabama, representing Alabama well. That's the kind of things that we do. We do research. That is something that we've emphasized. We can do research and do it well with high school kids because of those experts, those expert teachers who are experts in their field. And then the last story, it sort of hits home just what we do and how we prepare people. We have a teacher, his name's Kevin Dolbear. He's a very big guy, very gregarious. He always has health issues, and he had a very serious health issue 2 years ago. He was rushed to the emergency room. It was touch and go. And when he got there, a familiar voice greeted him. And he was wondering, what is going on here? This person seems to know me. Well, the doctor who was on call at that hospital at that time, who saved Kevin's life, was a graduate of ASMS, who Kevin taught chemistry to 13 years ago. So that doctor came full circle. Kevin, good thing he taught him well. Kevin was able to have his life saved by an alum. And our story encapsulates what we do better than that. You will not find a hospital in Alabama where there is not an ASMS graduate, either as a nurse, a doctor, maybe more than that. We're a tiny school. We have 250 kids. That's all we can really hold because of our dorm space. During COVID, we don't house 3 to a room, it's 2 to a room. So we're limited there. But we're a powerful, tiny thing that's doing good for Alabama. And I hope that in the future, we're able to probably do more with a little bit more funding, if that's possible. And I can imagine what more we can do for the state.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. You answered one question I was going to ask was how many students you have? 250. Is that, do you want to go beyond that if you had the?
We'd love to. Right now, one of our major challenges is the girls' dorm. We are the former site of Dauphin Way Baptist Church. If you've ever been to a lock-in down in Mobile, there's a chance that you did it at Mobile at that Baptist church. We converted it into the ASMS facilities in 1989. And, I shouldn't go into this, but we had 11 water leaks this year. 11. Ken Robinson and I and Dr. Church, probably in these same shoes, were pushing water out of a building at some point in between meetings. And the students were taking pictures of us and they were posting on Instagram. What are they doing? What are they doing? And I only bring that up to say that it's a distraction right now. Our facilities are old, they're 80 years old, and they're the former site of a Baptist church. And the girls' dorm, for example, where a lot of these leaks occur, it's a Sunday school building that we've converted and renovated again and renovated again, and it's just tired. We don't mind doing these things, but we can imagine what more we can do if we had access to better facilities for the girls.
Any members have any comments or questions? Representative Faulkner.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I learned a lot, and congratulations on your success that you're having with your students. That's impressive, particularly that ACT score. And I'm also very impressed you take kids from all 67 counties in Alabama. What was I going to ask? Oh, yeah. So I got into congratulating you, and I forgot about what I was going to ask you.
It's going to be a tough question, I can tell.
I was going to ask you about anything that students pay to attend your school. I know the state funds you as it does a school up in where I'm from, but I didn't know if your students, what they have to pay. All your students are living on campus. It appears that's a requirement at ASMS. And so I was just wondering, what is the cost to students, and how do you do that? How does financial aid figure in, and based on where the state's funding you?
Sure. That's a great question, and I'm sorry I didn't address that. So we're a little bit different than the other schools that are independent in the state. We only have a student activity fee that does not touch textbooks, tuition, room, or board. Those things are covered by the state. What the student activity fee goes for is the prom, the yearbook, clubs, organizations, and activities. And that's about $1,500 that the students expend every year. And we do have a bit of a fund that can cover students who a third party assesses, and if they can't cover it, we'll cover it.
Representative Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We understand about living in a tired building because we also live in a tired building. We understand
You had some
water
leaks too. Yes, you have.
Boy, but of course, you know, we're in a very compressed area. Do you have additional property to build? If you had the funding to build new dorms, and do you have the property available to you?
Thank goodness we do.
Okay.
We have a West Campus that right now has a soccer field, and then another field that's a little bit larger than a soccer field. So we have the space to make new developments. Yes.
Thank you.
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to highlight several things you'd mentioned to me really stick out. One is that ASMS is fully residential. It is a requirement. So whether students live actually in the Baldwin County or Mobile area, they still are required to be residents thereof. So I think that's something that's very special. And I think been on there at the school several times just to see the students from all across the state that are part of this. And there are those that want to think of this ASMS as if it's Mobile School. It's not Mobile School. This is Alabama School and such. That needs to be clearly understood. And the service provided to students all across the state. The level of quality, and not by any means to be derogatory towards any of the other school systems across the state, but the instructors, I was quite amazed the number of instructors that have PhDs as well as master's level, which, I mean, in a lot of the other schools, that's not something, it's quite rare. A lot of the, I guess, more traditional sort of public schools. The students with their research projects, it's something that's really also caught my attention. The other thing I would mention would be in regards to the students, just to be engaged with some of the students and to hear how, and I guess each of us can reflect back on our years of going through high school, and it may be, if you want to sort of categorize them as a little bit as misfits, because it may be that there were some aspects of the high school experience that maybe they didn't necessarily gravitate towards, or whether it be sports or music or other things that others might be a part of as students, but those that maybe really had a focus a little bit more on the academics and such. And so if we sometimes use the word nerds or such, and not to say that that's what...
Endearment, term of endearment.
Okay, but to see that these students are able to come into such a setting at ASMS and be able to blossom there, and not that they were restricted or held back in their traditional school setting, but that they just felt that I guess were in a setting of others sort of like them, that they could really just sort of flourish in that setting. So I'm glad that our state has provided that. Certainly the school with the 30 years then that has been in place is somewhat of a model for others then. So whether there be charter schools across the state later or such, but it would be something that would be certainly to be modeled after. But one last thing, and that is there are summer camps also that provides, I think, maybe middle school level students with exposure.
That's right. We have summer camps, and we do require it to be residential as well, and it gives students a chance to test drive our campus. And we're adding a component this year for a mini medical school, and we have students from South Alabama who have matriculated almost through medical school who will be teaching those classes.
Representative Stubbs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the presentation and the opportunity for us to learn more about the program and the students you serve. I had a couple questions. One, just more demographic information. What is the gender distribution of those 250 students? What is the acceptance rate when students apply, and how do you go about recruiting students throughout all 67 counties?
That's great. Thank you for asking that question. I'm happy to answer it. We have an admissions process that's holistic. There are no numbers that we look at there. We try to represent the geographical diversity of the state. And so what's important to us is the personal interview where they come to campus, talk to our staff, and what we're feeling out there is, are they independent enough to make it on their own? And if they are, and if they have decent grades, and if they have a decent ACT score, and again, there's no cutoff number. We take students with 18 ACTs all the way up to 34s. If they seem like they're a good fit, we will take them. Now, the gender distribution is interesting because you have many women in STEM initiatives going on in the world right now to push women and girls into STEM careers. Right now, we have more women on campus than we do men, and that's by about 55% to 45%.
We're going to have to vacate the room shortly. I want to give Representative Drummond the opportunity to make a comment.
Well, thank you, Dr. Hoyle. I'm sitting here cheering because they are out of Mobile, but they are an Alabama school. And I wanted to say to all of my colleagues, one of our founding members for the Alabama School of Math and Science, he mentioned Ann Betzold, but also our beloved Steve McMillan, who's no longer with us. And I've been on campus as a result of invitations from our colleague, Mr. McMillan. But I wanted to say thank you. I also want to just give you a second to elaborate on that 75% that stays in Alabama, because we're in a time that we're trying to keep all of our talent in Alabama, and it sounds like you all are doing that, and also the innovation behind it.
Well, Ann Betzold, who helped found the school with Steve McMillan and Walter Bell, they instilled in everyone at ASM to often and early tell families and students that the reason this school is here is to educate future Alabama leaders. So it's sort of like you're committing to stay in Alabama and help Alabama. We tell folks that, Ken Robinson tells folks that when he's recruiting them. They hear it when they're at ASMS, and then as they're graduating, that's a very important message that we relay to them.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Appreciate you being here. With us today for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Members, you have a sheet about Karen Cheeks, who's our committee clerk. and she will is very important to the runnings of our meetings. So please make sure you stay in contact with her, and you have a good relationship with Karen, because that helps us as function as a committee. Also, there's an information sheet she's requested you fill out, so I'll ask you to complete that and turn that into her ASAP. Thank you very much, and we look forward to our next meeting next Wednesday. Is that correct? Next Wednesday. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.